Questa sera vorrei portarvi con me in un angolino di lettura in inglese, sperando di portarvi un momento di relax. Il libro che vi leggerò è Just Like You di Nick Hornby. E Nick Hornby ha scritto moltissimi libri, da cui sono stati tratti anche dei film e delle serie TV. E sicuramente ne avrete sentito parlare. È uno scrittore inglese e questo libro l'ho letto più di un anno fa in inglese perché è veramente molto attuale, molto semplice da leggere. È ambientato a Londra, quindi mi sono rispecchiata parecchio e mi piace molto la sua scrittura perché appunto è molto attuale, è molto ironico e sì, mi piace molto, quindi ve lo consiglio assolutamente. In questo libro si parla di una storia tra due persone e con due background molto diversi, e quindi si parla un po' di queste due vite appunto molto, molto diverse tra loro che si vanno ad unire. E quindi sì, vi leggerò il primo capitolo e sperando ecco di farvi rilassare. Just like you. Bene, iniziamo. Premetto che ci saranno probabilmente delle parole che su YouTube non si possono dire, quindi le eviterò e farò delle pause, quindi questo è il motivo. How could one say with any certainty what one hated most in the world? It surely depended on how proximate the hated thing was at a given moment, whether you were doing it or listening to it or eating it at the time. She hated teaching Agatha Christie for A level. She hated any conservative education secretary. She hated listening to a younger son's trumpet practice. She hated any kind of liver, the sight of blood, reality TV shows, crime music, and the usual abstractions, global poverty, war, pandemics, the imminent death of the planet, and so on. But they weren't happening to her, apart from the imminent death of the planet, and even that was only imminent. She could afford not to think about them quite a lot of the time. Right now, at 11:15 on a cold Saturday morning, the thing she hated most in the world was queuing outside the Butchers while listening to Emma Baker going on about. She had been trying to move out of Emma's orbit for a while, but the movement was imperceptible and would, she guessed gloomingly, take another 4 or 5 years yet. They had met when their children were small and went to the same playgroup. Dinners were offered and reciprocated and offered again. The children were more or less the same then. They hadn't developed personalities really, and their parents hadn't yet decided what kind of people they were going to be. Emma and her husband had chosen private primary education for theirs, and as a direct consequence, Lucy's boys found them insufferable. Social interaction eventually stopped. But you couldn't do much about living near someone, shopping in the same places. It was a particular stage of the queuing that she hated, the point at which one was right outside the door, kept shut in winter, and one had to decide whether there was room inside the shop. Going too early, and you had to squash up against somebody while running the risk of anxious queue jump faces, too late, and somebody behind would toot her, metaphorically, for her timidity. There would be a gentle suggestion, a "do you want to?" or a "there's room in there now, I think." That was what it was like, pulling out an intersection that required aggression. She didn't mind being tooted when she was driving, though. She was separated from other drivers by glass and metal, and they were gone in a flash, never to be seen again. These people were her neighbors. She had to live with their nudges and disapproval every Saturday. She could have gone to the supermarket, of course, but then she would be letting local shops down. And in any case, the butcher's was just too good, so she was willing to spend the extra. Her sons ate neither fish nor vegetable, and she had reluctantly decided that she probably did care about them ingesting antibiotics, hormones, and other things. The tricky in or out part was probably another 10 minutes away, though. The expense and the quality were attractive to the residents of this particular London borough, so the queues were long and the customers took their time once they had forced their way inside. He didn't have to do anything tricky. She was his next customer. "Good morning, Joe." He wasn't Joe, he was Joseph. It said so on his name tag. But recently she had decided that she needed to be on friendlier terms. "What are you after?" "Oh, well, there's a question." At least she had the decency to say quietly, so only the 3 or 4 people immediately beside and behind her heard. They looked at him to see whether he was going to play along. He gave the loud, blonde woman his no-eyes smile. "I know, I'm wicked," she said, "or I would be given half a chance." Even that was supposed to be a joke. Gotcha. 7 minutes of the game left. 0-0, and Lucas took a massive swipe at the ball with his wrong foot, missed it completely, and whacked the opposite finger in the stomach, right in the middle of the area, right in front of the referee. The other kid went down, not because he was looking for a penalty, but because all of the hair and maybe even a couple of internal organs had been thumped out of him. Joseph was fond of Lucas. He wasn't much good at football, and he wasn't very bright, but Joseph had been coaching him for 3 years, and he'd never once missed training or a match. He was a good kid despite his father, who was not a good or even a reasonable man, and who, like his son, turned out to have a game. Parental pride often rendered him temporarily blind, and when the referee pointed to the spot, there was a volley of abuse that wasn't shocking. A couple of years ago, Joseph had run into his old deputy head in the Wood Green shopping centre, and Mr. Fielding had asked him what he was up to. Said Mr. Fielding, "a portfolio." "You're a portfolio working, that's the future, except not for you, in the present for you. It's the present for you." Joseph hadn't known there was a name for it, nor even that anyone else was thinking along the same lines, but Mr. Fielding's explanation made him feel better about what he was doing. Until that moment, he'd been worried that he'd just cobbled together a way of making a living, taking on part-time job after part-time job as a way of avoiding a full-time job. He worked more hours than anyone else he knew, but at least he'd never had to make a decision about his future, the kind where he went one way and not the other, and that was that. He did Saturdays in the butchers, 2 evenings a week coaching and 1 supervising the Friday night games, 3 mornings at the leisure centre, the after-school care for Marina's twins with the odd bit of babysitting thrown in, and the DJing. He hadn't yet earned a penny from the DJing, the job he wanted to do most, and in a couple of months it would actually cost him money. Joseph knew he wouldn't regret leaving the butchers or anyone in it if the DJing worked out, and he wouldn't be bothered about the leisure centre either. He'd call in to see the twins because he was very fond of them and their parents. He'd always thought he'd missed the coaching the most, but it was getting harder and harder. Kids wouldn't show up, even if you called them 2 hours before a match. The church they had attended didn't look like a church. A long time ago, it had been a library, but it was an old building dating from some time in the 19th century, and that was enough for Joseph's mother. Its high ceilings and Victorian brick meant she could be patronizing about the places of worship, mostly African, that had taken root in betting shops and supermarkets. In August, Hannah suggested that they went away somewhere, just for a couple of days, to make them feel as though the summer had happened to them. They were both working hard. Joseph was doing what he always did. There was more inside than outside for the first couple of weeks. They didn't make any kind of announcement to the boys. She invited Pete and Fiona, first of all, because she owed them. And then, after careful consideration, she decided to call Nina and ask her and her boyfriend Ralph. Lucy used to work with Nina before she got out of teaching, and she loved her, but she didn't see her enough of her. That would be lovely, said Nina. Just Pete and Fiona, you and Rav and, well, I'm seeing someone, Joseph. Before we get into Joseph, Rav and I are no more. Oh no, yes, sad, but there we are. What happened? Joseph had never been to a dinner party. He had eaten with family, sometimes extended family, and everyone had made an effort and made a conversation and so on. But he never sat inside a house with a group of friends and eaten food that one of them had cooked without a parent present. Was that the definition of a dinner party? Spero di avervi rilassato almeno un pochino. E se vi potessero interessare altre letture in inglese o in italiano, ovviamente, fatemelo sapere nei commenti.